Hi, Tiger families. My name is Mr. Gordillo or Mr. G. I am the Assistant Principal Athletic Director here at Millennium High School. Thank you for being here and watching this video for the Spring Sports Parent Meeting. I apologize that this is a recorded video and I'm not able to do this live. That is always my preference, but unfortunately, I've had a situation happen in my personal life that doesn't allow me to be available at the time this meeting was scheduled. I did not want to change the date of the meeting as a result of my personal conflict because I know people plan around that. So thank you again for watching this video. I really appreciate it. As I said, I'm Mr. Gordillo or Mr. G. Either of those is fine. Because I'm not available live to ask questions, I would ask that if you have any questions after watching this video, please send me an email or feel free to call my office. Both of those are listed on the school website. So if you go to the school website, then you can find my email address as well as my number. Having said that, I want to go ahead and get started with the information that we need to provide for you so that your son or daughter has a successful spring season. I'd like to congratulate you on your son or daughter making one of our teams. We believe that we have some of the best athletic programs in the state. So anybody who makes one of those teams is in for an awesome season, and it is a treat for them to be a part of it. So first, I'd like to talk about our athletic trainers. We're very fortunate here to have one of the best athletic trainers in the state in JD Burgess. He's been with Millennium. This is his second stint with Millennium High School. But when I say he's one of the best in the state, I don't say that because he works here with me. It is a fact when you talk to people in the field, other athletic trainers, orthopedics, doctors, all of the people associated in the athletic training world are aware of JD. As a result of him, we're able to get some of the top interns in the state to come and learn under him, and your student athletes are able to benefit from those interns working with them. We also have a second trainer, Mike Utter, who we contract through Banner. He will be available here at practices or at games, depending on which day of the week that it is. So where your son or daughters are in good hands with them. Would like to talk about the process of seeing an athletic trainer if there is an injury. We hope that everybody stays healthy, but there may be injuries that happen during the course of this season. If your son or daughter experiences an injury, we would encourage you to first have our athletic trainers, JD or Mike, evaluate them. And then they could give you options, diagnosis, kind of tell you what's the plan of attack to help them rehab through it. Sometimes you may need to see an outside physician, or you may just want to see an outside physician. That's perfectly okay. However, once you see an outside physician, in order for your son or daughter to be cleared to to return to athletics here at Millennium High School, they will have to have written clearance from the doctor that they've seen. So, for example, if they go to the emergency room, they would need a written clearance from the same doctor that saw them sent to our trainer, JD Burgess. And then ultimately, our trainer is the one that has the final say on clearing student athletes to return. Most of the time, they are aligned with the doctors. However, sometimes they may say, hey, you know what, we think that it's best for the student athlete to take an extra week or an extra day or two. That's not because they want them to miss sports or miss any time. That's just because they think that that's what's in the best interest of that student athlete. So we ask that you respect that. You can email JD with any written clearances at jburgess@aguafria.org. That can also be found on our school website and our athletic website. During the course of the season, you may just want to come and see JD to talk to him in person, or to Mike and talk to them in person, or you may want to be there when your son or daughter is going through rehab. So we ask that if you do need to make an appointment, or your son or daughter does, that you email JD to set a specific day and time. That is the best way to reach him. That's the best way to have something set up. To have your son or daughter evaluated and for you to be there. The reason why we ask you make an appointment and your son or daughter just doesn't show up unannounced is because we need to limit the number of people that are in the athletic training room. Also, we still have the same policy that we've had in place where our trainers are not allowed to provide water bottles that are shared amongst the teams. So your son or daughter must bring their own water bottle to every practice and every game, whether home or away. We will provide water for them to refill their water bottles, but they will need to have their own water bottle. If they don't have their own water bottle, we will not be allowed to allow them to practice or play, because they would not be able to hydrate themselves and keep themselves hydrated and healthy during the contest. So please make sure to check with them to make sure they're bringing their water bottle to every practice and every game, whether that's home or away. Next, I want to talk about our academic eligibility policy. We still have an we still have an academic eligibility policy that has not changed in our district. There are two parts to that policy. The first part is the credits earned component. So the credits earned component says that each grade level has to have earned at least a set amount of credits in order to be eligible to participate in that sport. So freshmen, they just got here. They haven't had the opportunity to earn credits for a full school year, so there's no credits earned component for freshmen. However, a sophomore must have earned at least 4 credits to be eligible. A junior must have earned at least 10 credits to be eligible, and a senior must have earned at least 16 credits to be eligible. Again, a sophomore 4 credits, a junior 10 credits, and a senior 16 credits. Those numbers aren't just chosen out of a hat. Those are the numbers that keep those grade levels on track to graduate on time. We love having your sons and daughters here, but ultimately we want them to leave us to move on to the next phase of their life and be prepared to do that. So achieving those credits earned at those grade levels means that they're on track to do that. We take our academic eligibility policy serious here, and we do enforce it whenever we need to. So once we have rosters from each of the spring sports, we will check each of those students athletes to see if they've earned enough credits in order to be eligible. If they have, that's great. If by chance they have not, you will receive an email from me that details that they're academically ineligible, as well as the process for how they can regain eligibility by earning those credits again, or making up the credits that they are deficient. There's also a one-time waiver that can be applied for if your son or daughter is deficient in credits. That's completed with the counselor and ultimately reviewed by the principal, who has the final say on that. The second part of the academic eligibility policy is grading periods. Every 4.5 weeks in our district, there is either a progress report or a report card that comes out for student athletes. We pull grades of all rosters at that point, and any student athlete that has at least one F on a progress report or report card automatically becomes academically ineligible for a minimum of 1 week. So what happens is we'll get the progress report or report cards. They become ineligible that Saturday. So if it's in the week, they're able to finish out that week, but that Saturday they become ineligible, and then they are ineligible through the following Friday. The following Friday, we will recheck grades. If at that point they have regained academic eligibility by passing their classes, then they would regain eligibility that Saturday. So it is a 1 week sit period. There's no way around that. Each time that we do this, often contacted about questions about their grade or why their grade is the way that it is or what they need to do to improve their grade. I would encourage you to contact the teacher of that class, because they're the ones that can answer that question. They know why a student athlete is failing, what a student athlete needs to do in order to get their grade back up to passing. Also, if you believe that the grade is an error, the teacher would be the first person for you to contact in that regard. If your son or daughter is academically ineligible, you will receive an email from me that details when the ineligibility starts, as well as when the ineligibility ends. We try to get that out as soon as possible. And we also notify their counselors, who can oftentimes help them create a plan to get back on track. If you have questions, again, I would encourage you to contact their teachers first and myself second in that process. The next piece that I want to speak about is transportation. This every year, transportation becomes popular during sports seasons. Our district policy requires all student athletes to ride to and from school events on school provided transportation without exception. However, we also realize that we are still in a pandemic, and some people may be uncomfortable with their son or daughter being on a bus in an enclosed space. If that is you, you can request a waiver that allows you to transport your son or daughter to and from athletic events. However, please understand that if you complete that waiver, it's not a pick and choose. Like they're going to ride with the team to this game, but to this other game, I'm going to take them. It is a all or nothing. So if you are saying, hey, we don't feel comfortable with them riding the bus during the pandemic, we would send you the waiver, allow you to complete that, but then they would not be able to ride school-provided transportation for the rest of that season. So please keep that in mind when you make those requests. Also, if you do complete that waiver and you are transporting your son or daughter to school provided school events, then you would still need to arrive at the time that the coach says, so arrive the same time as the rest of the team. And then you would have to check out with the coach before leaving and leave the same time as everyone else. So you can make arrangements with that with the coach by speaking in advance to them before the game or before the day of the match. Again, contact the coach to let them know, and you can find out the times that they need to arrive. Participation fee. Normally, there is a school participation fee of $100 for students to participate in extracurricular activities, or $50 if they are on free or reduced lunch. Our district has waived that participation fee for this year, so there's no need to worry about a participation fee. That is not a barrier to them participating this year. I cannot say if that will extend into next school year or not, but for this spring season, there is no participation fee that they need to worry about. The next piece I'd like to talk about is our code of conduct. So we have a district athletic code of conduct that has expectations for our student athletes. Here at Millennium High School, we take that code of conduct seriously and we enforce it as necessary. I would encourage you to read through that athletic code of conduct with your son or daughter to make sure everybody understands the expectation and is on board with the expectations. That document is in Register My Athlete. Oftentimes, we're racing through to get our student athlete clear on time. We may not read everything. So I'd encourage you to go back and read that. There are a few things that could lead to automatic dismissal for the rest from the team for the rest of the season. That would be if they are involved in some sort of physical altercation. So whether that's a physical assault or that is a mutual combat fight, either of those would lead to them not being able to participate for the rest of that season. We're consistent with that. The reason for that is if they've demonstrated the inability to control their emotions and refrain from physically responding to a situation, we wouldn't want to put them into an athletic event where it's competitive and emotions are running high, and potentially have that same thing repeat itself in a competition. Another thing that automatic removal from the team would be use or possession of alcohol or drugs. On our campus or at a school event or even in the community. If there is evidence of that, they would be removed from the rest of the season. The way that the code of conduct works is if a violation is reported or suspected, we do an investigation. At the conclusion of that investigation, we will hold a meeting with the parent, the student athlete, as well as the head coach and myself to discuss that code of conduct infraction and then talk about what are the consequences for that. I don't think it's any secret that across the nation, the last several years, vaping is one of the biggest epidemics for teenagers and in schools. Two types of vaping. There is the tobacco-based, which is nicotine-based juice that they vape. That's not an automatic removal from the team on the first offense. It is a suspension from a certain number of games, depending on the situation. But then there's also vaping marijuana wax. Marijuana wax is an automatic removal from the rest of the team. That is a drug and considered a narcotic because of the potency. And possession or use of that would lead to a student athlete being removed for the rest of that season. We say the rest of that season because the next season is a new season, and we believe student athletes deserve the right to have an opportunity to not make the same mistake again, and we don't want to penalize them for their entire career. But again, I encourage you to read through that with your son or daughter. Next, I'd like to talk about kind of the protocol if you have a question or a concern with a coach regarding your son or daughter participation in the sport. From time to time, questions may come up, and that's awesome. We ask that you email the coach to request a specific day and time for a meeting. A coach will respond to you when that will be. And then we ask that you come in there to express your concerns and then give the coach time to look into your concerns or apply any corrections that need to be made. We certainly understand that parents and student athletes may have an opinion on things and what they're done, but we believe we hire the best coaches in the state, and we empower them to coach the program the best way that they see fit. If you have questions or concerns after you've met with the coach, that you don't feel it's addressed, feel free to reach out to me to request a meeting with me. However, things that I don't discuss with parents or meet with parents about would be playing time, style of play, coaching philosophy. The reason why is I'm not at every practice. I could not offer an educated opinion or an informed opinion of why your son or daughter is playing or not playing. That's a conversation that the coach can have. If you feel your son or daughter is being mistreated, being hazed, harassed, things of that nature, please contact me immediately so I can launch an investigation, and I'd be happy to do so. Also, please understand all of our practices here at Millennium High School are closed to everybody except for coaches, student athletes, and managers. So parents are not able to watch practice, not able to stay at practice. That is what the games and competitions are for. And we'd love to see all of you at those games and competitions, but unfortunately, practice would not be an option for you to watch. Um, Next, I like to talk about attendance at games and matches. So we've had some restrictions the last couple of years with COVID. Happy to say that when it comes to attendance at events, there is no capped number. So feel free to come to the events or to have other family or other friends come to the event. We'd be happy to have you there. So again, there's no restrictions with attendance. All of our tickets for those events where paid attendance is required are done through GoFan. There are no cash at the gates, no cash boxes, so you would need to buy that through GoFan, which is gofan.co. And if you type in Millennium High School in the search bar, you'll be able to see all of our different events to buy tickets to. Lastly, I want to talk about COVID and COVID protocol. So the last couple of years, this has been something that's prominent protocols, and they change from time to time. So what I'm going to tell you right now for the spring season is completely different what I just told the winter season as well as the fall season earlier this school year. So currently, I want to talk about close contacts, and I want to talk about positive cases. So let's start with close contacts. If your son or daughter has close contact with somebody who has tested positive for COVID, we are no longer requiring them to quarantine. So it's not a mandatory quarantine if they are in close contact. That is up to your family whether you choose to quarantine them or not. The school will notify you as we know when there's close contacts. But again, that is up to your family whether or not you choose to have them quarantined. If you don't quarantine them, they start to develop symptoms. We ask at that point that you refrain from sending them and have them tested. But there is no mandatory quarantine, and there is no mandatory testing requirement for them to return after they've been a close contact. Then positive. So if your son or daughter tests positive for COVID, currently the AIA has not changed their protocol. And so what that protocol is once they've tested positive, 10 days after that, they need to see a doctor and be evaluated. There is a form which you would receive an email that has all of this information and directions and has all of the forms as needed. But there's a form for a doctor to complete an evaluation and then complete the form. That form needs to be sent back to myself as well as our trainer, JD Burgess. And then there's a second part to the return to play protocol, but there's a choice now with that. So the first choice is you can complete the physical return to play portion of the return to play protocol with our athletic training staff led by JD and Mike. Or the second part of that is if you don't want to go through the physical return to play with the trainers, then instead you can complete a waiver, which will also be in that email, and you can sign a waiver allowing them to skip that portion, and then they would be able to return. The doctor's visit has to happen. There is no opt out of that. So 10 days after you've tested positive, they can see the doctor. And then after that, it's up to you whether to sign the waiver and opt out of the physical return to play portion or to go ahead and do that and schedule that through JD. Again, once we are aware that they've tested positive, we will notify you via email with all of this information and directions. That concludes all of the information that I wanted to provide you, talk about today. I think it's important that you have all that information up front so we can have a successful season and eliminate any unknowns or questions that you may have up front. Again, please feel free to call me or email me, rgordillo@aguafria.org. My number here at the school, 623-932-7200, extension 2138. I'm happy to talk with you over phone or communicate via email, whichever is your preference if you have any questions. I hope your son or daughter has an awesome spring season. I look forward to seeing them in competition, and I look forward to seeing you out on the sidelines. Thank you, and go Tigers.